And this week, one of the most strategically important companies in Australia reported its half-year earnings. Orica is one of the world's largest explosives manufacturers. It said net profit rose 40% to $250 million. The company, which, as I said, was founded on the Victorian goldfields in the 1870s gold rush, is today truly a global business with 14,000 employees. Now, look, Orica has choice about where it invests its capital, and though it wants to, it right now can't justify spending the shareholders' capital here in Australia. I caught up with Sanjeev Gandhi, Orica's chief executive, and just asked what is needed for him to change that attitude.
Look, what businesses always want is stability and continuity, and with the government getting re-elected, that's what we are getting, so that's extremely positive. Now, this is a huge opportunity to put into place clear measures for all the policies that were put forward in the first term. As an example, future made in Australia. So if you want to have a future made in Australia, manufacturing very clearly needs cost competitive energy, electricity prices, cost competitive natural gas, and enough availability of gas, and obviously skilled labour. So if we can address those policy issues, I'm very, very confident that manufacturing will not just survive and thrive in this country, but then we, as manufacturing owners in the country, will be encouraged to do more in Australia. So let's get the policy clear. Let's ensure that there's enough gas, cost-competitive electricity, and then we will also then plan for the transition into renewables and decarbonisation. All of that cannot happen day one. It is a transition. It takes time, and we need to ensure that we do not stumble during this journey.
OK, so you are one of the clear companies, Orica, as not only a beneficiary, but a likely agent for change into the transition into renewable energy. Now, one of the important aspects of that is potentially hydrogen production. Quite clearly, it's going to be into the other gases and the other products that you make as well. So ammonia being one of the key ones. I just want your sense as to how the government, or what the government needs to do to ensure that doesn't go off track.
Yeah, so there's several things they need to do. I mean, let's start with hydrogen. At the moment, the costing on hydrogen is such, green hydrogen I talk about now, that you cannot economically make green hydrogen unless you get subsidy both from the state and the federal government. So the first prerequisite is obviously to ensure that there's enough funding for industries like ours who've got ambitions and who've got plans to make green hydrogen. And this means both OPEX and CAPEX funding, so that, we have a feasible project, an economically viable project to make green hydrogen. Now, the more green hydrogen we make, the less natural gas we use. So you see the transition starts already here. And then you start to scale that up over a period of time. You get more competitive, and then you start reducing your gas consumption, which also helps with decarb. So all of that comes together as long as there's a very, very clear strategy. How do you do that? But that's not the only principle. You need cost-competitive renewable electricity. I just heard about the announcement from New South Wales that they're investing in 10 new projects for renewable electricity. That's great. But continuous manufacturing cannot run on renewable electricity. We need constant electricity supply 24/7, 365. So we need firming. This could come from coal, this could come from gas, this could come from hydro, it could come from batteries. But that is infrastructure the government needs to build in and invest, so that we are encouraged to take even more renewable electricity. Then we need water, cost-competitive water, which doesn't compete with potable water. So there's a lot of elements involved just in getting green hydrogen going in this country. Orica is fully committed. I'm looking forward to negotiating and talking with our ministers, both state and federal, once the dust settles now on the elections and we have clarity, and hopefully we'll push ahead from there.
And then you do not live alone, and Australia does not live alone. You have got similar deals being offered to you by other countries right now. So Australia's got to be pretty fast and nimble if it is to actually attract the capital and the business in these transitions.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, just look at what's happening in the United States. They are pro-manufacturing, they are pro-mining, they are pro-infrastructure. All of that is where Orica plays. And they've got very, very cost-competitive energy prices. So given a choice, my incremental dollar would always go first to the United States, and Australia doesn't come on the top of the list. Now, by addressing these policy issues that we've had in terms of giving us clarity, ensuring that, companies like Orica, and that we consume natural gas to make products. We do not make electricity out of it. So if we can get enough gas supply at cost-competitive prices, my next dollar comes into Australia. And then I'm able to support with my know-how, my knowledge, my technology, the transition away from fossil fuels. So it's all a matter of getting the policy right.
But then go to your end product. Your key end product is explosives. The fact of the matter is, right now, there has been significant mining and a significant mining boom in gold in particular. And oddly enough, with that boom to record prices of gold, you have been one of the key beneficiaries.
Absolutely, not just gold, but also copper, because as you can imagine, data centers, AI need a lot of copper for electricity transmission. My two biggest product portfolios in terms of resources is gold and copper. And obviously the macros for gold and copper are very, very positive globally. So, and then we've made the acquisition in the United States, where obviously there is a new boom coming in mining. They've got a new policy called Fast 41, where they are fast-tracking mining projects, which have been stuck up with, with regulations and permitting and environmental issues. In the last 2 days, they have nearly fast-tracked 20 projects. Now, if these projects get commercialized, Orica benefits because we are a big player both in the gold and the copper industry. Australia needs to catch up very quickly.
So, therefore, go to the tariff situation. Given the tariff is protecting US industry, you manufacture in the United States. Where do you see yourself in terms of those tariffs? Are you a net winner or a net loser out of the tariffs?
Look, in the end, we are kind of agnostic to tariffs because, as you said, in the United States, we are self-sufficient. We either buy local or we make local. We do the same, by the way, in Australia. We either buy or make locally. So local content in our industry is extremely important because our products don't travel easily. So in that respect, we will not be impacted by the tariffs. Now, tariffs are a very blunt tool, and my concern is more about the cost impact of supply chain disruptions due to tariffs. Costs go up. Prices go up, the consumer pays more, and if the US consumer stops buying or reduces buying, that has an impact and implications for the global economy. That's something to watch out for. Direct impacts on Orica, not so much at the moment.
OK, but that being the case, as we sit here now, what you've just told me is that if you have spare investor capital, you're putting that capital in the United States. You're not putting it in Australia until the government fixes some of these fundamental issues in terms of energy, in terms of water supply, in terms of key things that you require here in Australia.
Absolutely. Productivity is a key concern, right? All manufacturing industries are suffering from poor productivity, higher labor costs, higher energy costs, inflation across the board. These are things that need... So we need to be competitive because we are competing in the global field. My products go to more than 100 countries. They go to more than 500 mine sites all over the world. I'm competing with domestic competitors out of the United States, out of the Middle East, out of Europe and Asia. If my products are not competitive, I lose. So it's extremely important to support local manufacturing here, that manufacturing stays competitive in the country.
So that is the absolute key. But then the results you have just released this week, they clearly show that you've got a pretty decent return on your equity. But of course, you've always got an eye to try and improve that. Are there ways in which you can do this without necessarily moving capital around? Are there other acquisitions you need, or is it simpler that you stick to the knitting that you've got now?
Yeah, I think I'm happy with the portfolio we have built over the last 5 years. So we've got 3 vertical business segments now. One is our core blasting business. We've been doing this for 150 years. We've now got a digital technologies business, which is focused on providing services to the mining industry. And we've got specialty mining chemicals, which also supports the mining industry, the gold business we talked about. So I'm very happy with the portfolio. The focus at the moment is to maximize value, find ways to cross-sell and scale the businesses up. And that's what's leading to the great results the team has delivered in this half. And I'm expecting that momentum to continue because the demand for our products and services will only increase. The demand for commodities is increasing. There's not enough supply because the resource industry is underinvested, which means we need to get more out of what we have today. And that's all about productivity. That's all about efficiency and sustainable mining. And Orica is #1 in those fields.
Sanjeev Gandhi, Chief Executive of one of Australia's oldest and indeed most historic companies, Orica. Many thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Ross. Thanks for having me.